So I said in my last video I was going to do this, basically like bigger swords and whatnot. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any European style swords, but I can still show the difference. And there's a point to all this that I'll get to, don't worry. And just so people know, if you like wider blades and longer blades, that's fine. You know, this is not bashing him. But there are some people that think some swords are made just wider over the centuries, which is true. Some did. But also, not very many were done that way. Because, well, armor. You take like the Roman gladius, which is a good sword. During that time, Vikings used swords kind of similar to that. But if you look at the time period, they weren't wearing heavy armor. I mean, they had chest plates and whatnot, yeah. But they weren't decked out fully like Middle Ages. Middle Ages are fully decked out body armor. And, well, a wide blade is just not going to get into those crevices of a fully armored person. On top of that, you have the weight factor. Now, Roman gladius isn't that long, but you get into 30-inch blade or longer wide blade, and it's going to be a lot heavier. Maybe about 3 pounds. Now, people would say 3 pounds ain't nothing. Well, if you think 3 pounds isn't nothing, I want you to train with that for 30 minutes straight. And then go and train for an hour with that 3-pound sword. Straight, no breaks. And I guarantee you, your arms and body are going to be sore. Even when I took fencing, even a foil weighs less than a pound, just about. You're tired. You're tired from swinging it, you know. So, I've noticed, like, in Japanese swords, though, competition cutters is what actually they're called. They're 2 inches, just about almost wide. And it's for a purpose, to cut through multiple tatamis. Now, if we look at, I have some examples of katanas. And then I have examples of historical ones that I got credit to, where I got it from was the Samurai Museum in Tokyo. So, if you look at something like this, this is my sword from Swords of Northshire. No, it's not a real Hamon. So, get over it. Anyways, if you look how thin that profile is, right there. This would have been during the 13th century. Okay. And the reason why I say that is because one of the images I got is from the 13th century. Very thin profile, as you can see. So this would correlate with that time period. This right here, this portion right here measures at 7/8. So that's really tapered down. So for a blade like this, being this tapered down, I mean, this thing is so nimble because of that too. This is such a nimble sword. You could really get up into cracks in armor with this thing so easily. Now, if you had a 2-inch wide blade, you're going to have difficulty with that. But this thing is really, this is as nimble as Unakubi because of this taper. Now, people would think because it's tapered this much right here, it wouldn't be that strong. It would bend really easily. Matthew Jensen tested a Swords of Northshire, and it took a lot to break it. Now, this is 1060, and the one he was doing was 1095, differentially hardened, and it took a lot. He even said, if I remember correctly, he thought this thing would break sooner because it was so tapered down right there. That's not true. All it has to do with the heat treatment. So just because it's this thin down doesn't mean it won't be strong. I mean, you look at European swords, they have a lot of distal taper. So this would be about 13th century. Now, the funny thing I've noticed, looking at these, and I will throw the image of the 13th century one right up here, which would be from, might be pronouncing this wrong, Nanabokuchu period. 1352 to 1375. So it's the mid to late of that period. So, and they're tapered down. And it's because, well, everybody's wearing armor. Wide blade's not going to get in there. You want something with a good taper to it. But the funny thing I've noticed, you get up into the 17th century, and I have these on my phone right now. So about 17th century, which is getting into mid or late Edo period, you get something like this. Okay. A little bit wider now. All right. And this is my Sawadi. So right in here is about 15/16. So it's not much. It's only a 16th. But it's still got that distal taper. Okay. So the first one was 7/8. This is 15/16 down there at the end. Okay. Now the next one is about the 18th century. And I'll throw an image here or here of that one. Because I found this really interesting. And I was fortunate to have examples of swords in my possession that would represent that time period. This is my Bohayu. So about 18th century. This is 1 inch wide. On the right in here is 1 inch. Okay. So, and this is what we're used to now, right here. Is this width right here. And it varies between 1 inch and 15/16. Now people think, oh, that ain't much, it's just a 16th, you know. That 16th makes a world of difference. It really, really does. This one's a lot heavier. The Bohayu is a lot heavier than my Sawadi. Okay. So, a 16th is, in being a welder and a fabricator for over 30 years, to us, a 16th is a lot. Okay. But you can feel the weight difference. Like, between my Sawadi and this Bohayu, this thing is like a feather in your hands, because it has such a distal taper to it. So that just shows, you know, that, and they both, like this one, like I said, weighs more than this one. So yeah, the width, the more meat you have on it, the heavier it's going to get, obviously. Now comes the fun part. Skallagrim did a video on this. So I just wanted to touch on it because I saw the guy's response to it. And some of the things he said, I do disagree with. So basically, this guy has a 45-pound sword that he had made. So Skullgrim did a video on it. Like, it's not really realistic or practical, which I have to agree on that with Skullgrim. And, you know, Skullgrim referenced the Middle Ages, you know, which the guy goes, you can't just, I'm not talking about the Middle Ages, I'm talking about now. Well, the reason why Skullgrim's referencing that is because that's the time period we have to look at, that swords were used a lot. Okay? So you can't just throw that out the window. That doesn't work. Show me a time period right now that we're using swords for battle. You can't. So we have to reference the past. And he was like, oh, I'm talking modern. Well, if you're talking modern, this still fits the bill. Sorry, it just does. Second of all, he says, oh, I'd be intimidated by this thing if I was on the battlefield. Well, I wouldn't be, personally. If I saw this big 45-pound sword, somebody's going to wield him to battle, because, hey, a skirmish, a battle could go 30 minutes, it could go an hour, it could go longer. Don't know. I wouldn't be intimidated, though. Now, somebody had, let's say, I'm not specifically talking about katana, a sword, even a broadsword, double-edged broadsword, and maybe like a Viking axe, I'd be a little worried. I really would be, because you could hook with the axe and lock the opponent's sword in and then get them. So what does the opponent have to do? He can either, well, try and step back and hopefully his sword's not bound, or if his sword is bound, he can't get it out, though what's the only choice he has besides dying? Let go of his weapon and get the hell out of the way. Now you don't have a weapon. Or I'd be more intimidated with a guy wielding two swords, like a katana and a wakizashi, because one's a shield, a deflector, and the other one's to attack you if you're only using one sword. That's more intimidating to me. A 45-pound sword is not intimidating to me, because your recovery time is going to take a lot longer than if, well, let's say, use a sword with a taper like this, because like I said, this thing is super nimble. There's no front heaviness to this thing at all. So I'd be more afraid of somebody wielding this thing at me than a big hunk of steel. You might as well just use a club, in my opinion. And all you got to do on YouTube is just search 45-pound sword and you'll find what I'm talking about. But if you do, don't go over and harass them. Don't poke fun at them. Just leave them be. We don't do that. Okay? Let's not start drama. Don't need to. Second of all, wielding a weapon like that is going to mess up your joints. It's going to mess up your rotator cuffs. It's probably going to give you carpal tunnel in your hands. Yeah, people go, oh, I could develop my muscles. Yeah, but what you don't understand is, what they understand is you're tearing up your joints with something like that. Whereas, even something like this, nah, unless you overextended yourself and pulled your muscles bad, which is doubtful, you're not going to hurt yourself unless you're stupid. Don't know how to use a sword. But like I said, if people like the competition cutters, because that's what they are, they're 2-inch blades, I have no problem with it. I don't own one. I don't like heavy swords. And to me, wide blades like that aren't appealing to me. They just aren't. So, unless it's something like a Viking sword, a gladius, because it's designed that way for the time period. And that's fine. But I even like European swords, the way they taper out, the sleekness of them. Rapiers. I do like cutlasses. So eventually we'll get some of those. But as far as a big chunk of steel, no. To me, I think that's just ridiculous. Just not practical. Because if you've watched enough of my videos, I like practicality to it. I like to have fun learning it. But if I have to use it, I want to be able to use it. You know. That's just plain and simple. So that's all I got for you guys. Hope you enjoyed this one. And yeah, 45 pound sword. Thinks it's practical. Yeah, it's a good thing we don't still fight with swords. That guy wouldn't make it. See you all later.